Welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Teachers Podcast. Dr. Christie Smurl is back on the podcast. It's such an honor to have you back on, Dr. Christie.
Oh, it's wonderful to be back. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to share some more.
I know the last episode was so juicy and full of wisdom and knowledge, and we didn't even get a chance to finish all of our topics. So we have some extra ones for you today. Just as a brief intro, last episode we covered Dr. Christie's awakening journey. We talked about veganism. We talked about Himalayan tantric shamanism, and we shared the different versions of Kali that can be activated and that are part of Himalayan tantric shamanism. So, Dr. Christie is a doctor of Ayurveda at Southern California University and a nurse practitioner, as well as a plethora of other amazing gifts and talents that you have. And today we're going to cover Yin Yoga and the difference with other yogas. We're going to talk about Ayurvedic emotional regulation techniques. We're going to talk about Ayurvedic mental and spiritual regulation. We're going to touch on Reiki, and then we'll talk about the different types of yogas and what a yoga curriculum looks like at university. So we have a lot of beautiful topics to cover today. So I think a good one to start with would be to talk about Yin Yoga and what that looks like for people that haven't tried it, and that can tie in with the difference with all different types of different yogas that you know of as well.
I absolutely love Yin Yoga. So I often tell people when I first started going to actual yoga, not on VHS at home, but in a yoga studio,
Mhm.
I didn't know the difference between the different styles, and I really didn't know a lot more other than the asana, the physical portion.
Mhm.
Um, but when I started my 500-hour yoga teacher training program, I decided to do a 100-hour specialty certification in Yin Yoga.
Mm.
And one of the reasons why I decided to do that specialty is because each time I would go to Yin Yoga class, I felt something very deep shifting in me. Now, naturally, all of the yoga classes gave their own specific benefits,
Mhm.
but Yin Yoga is very unique in the sense that most of the positions are held for a much longer duration.
Mhm.
So sometimes up to 5 minutes in a held position. Um, so one of the things we were going to talk about anyways, and I'll move through it briefly, were the different types of styles of
Mhm.
yoga, particularly asanas. So let's say you're looking at a yoga studio and you think, oh, what kind of class do I want to go to? And maybe you see on there restorative.
Mhm.
Restorative is, they tuck you in with pillows and straps and props, and you lay back and you completely relax into the position. No
Mhm.
active muscle holding, tensing, stretching, maybe some stretching, but very relaxing. And
Mhm.
there's different types of yoga, like the traditional hatha poses. But then we have different lineages, let's say Ashtanga, the physical practice of Ashtanga yoga. They're very exact sequences, exact alignments, exact use of breath, very similar to Iyengar, very exact sequences. Each class you go to, you pretty much know what you're doing.
Mhm.
Then we start getting into other styles like Bikram. What's Bikram about? Bikram yoga, you can guarantee you're gonna sweat. It's hot. Like they have
Yeah.
the heater set to 100 degrees.
Yeah, sometimes more.
Yeah, for some body types, fantastic.
Mhm.
Other body types, not so good. I remember the first Bikram class I went to, I was the last student to arrive, and I was right next to the heater. I
Oh
was like,
boy.
this is never going to work. I'm going to pass out. I'm going to get angry because of my
Uh-huh.
nature. But
Yeah.
and I was startled at that point in my life how people were just kind of in their little tidy whities and all sweaty and
Right.
there's different styles for everybody and you have to
Right.
find your style.
So
But
while we're talking about Bikram, what would be a dosha or a body type that would benefit from that?
Kapha body types,
Okay.
people who are thicker, maybe slower flowing in their body, maybe people who need to lose weight and really get that swedana, that sweating going on, and that heat, in particular the heat. Now, Vata body types, it's kind of a 50-50 because they love the warmth. They love the heat and the sweat in the room, but sometimes it's a bit too much and it'll
Hmm.
dry them out and then exhaust them. So
Hmm.
it's, finding that Goldilocks effect. Pitta constitutions can have a really difficult time in Bikram yoga because it's so hot. Me, I
Hmm.
was like, I will punch the wall.
Right, right. Yeah,
Immediately incited my anger.
yeah. So what is it? Is it the fire element that brings out the anger and that's how it's connected?
Like a pitta person, either vikruti or prakriti, if it's their nature or their imbalance, if you put them in too much heat, the heat immediately goes to their head and they'll often just start feeling angry and irritated and restless. And it's not actually good for them.
Okay.
Uh, so you have to know your body type. Like yin yoga. Kapha people love yin yoga and restorative because it's slow, it's easy. You just kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
But they should be doing the harder vinyasa, flowing, going, Iyengar, strong positions, strong alignment, and
Hmm.
they tend to lean towards the opposite
Right.
if they don't know what's best for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I'm mostly Pitta and some Kapha. And so I love the steam room in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that it just gets my body sweating and I'm getting that water element too.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it feels different than the sauna for my body. Uh,
Absolutely.
and I saw a study the other day where it was like people were going on these cleanses and uh, these deep types of diets, right, to clear out their system from parasites and things like that. And in that study, they showed that actually going to the steam room was way more effective than like just a few visits compared to a month or 2 months of like a deep cleanse, which I thought was really fascinating. And it made sense that like they tested microplastics, they tested all these aspects that people are trying to clear out of their body, and the sauna and the steam room were like number one for clearing all that out of your body. So that
Well,
was pretty profound to hear that.
yeah. In Ayurveda, they say that sweating is one of the primary waste products of the body.
Hmm.
And, a lot of people, they don't want to sweat a lot. They put antiperspirant on. And so we're holding a lot of toxins in the body. And
Hmm.
it's directly linked up with the plasma in the body, the lymphatic system. So if we're always holding on to these stale toxins, then the body has more toxins to feed other organisms. So it's
Hmm.
really important to get good sweat going.
Yeah, for sure. And so with the tie back of yin yoga, right? Is some people I know for myself, I've seen classes that are kind of a blend or promoted as restorative yoga, and there's some similarities, right, between yin and restorative.
There's a little bit of similarity in terms of the length of time the position is maintained.
Okay.
Usually in restorative versus yin, the key difference is restorative, you're completely relaxing the body, complete relaxation.
Hmm.
Whereas yin, you might look like you're not moving, but you're in a very dynamic state of holding that position. So let's say, an infamous position, pigeon pose.
Hmm. Hmm.
Pigeon pose, where you're in that deep, almost like splits with the leg in front of you in a 90-degree, 45-degree angle.
Hmm.
In restorative yoga, you would have a bolster and a pillow, and you would find that perfect comfort level.
Hmm.
Whereas in yin yoga, you're going to get right to that stage where you're like, okay, that's enough of a stretch. Oh
Hmm.
my. Now, can I hold that dynamic stretch for up to 5 minutes?
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas restorative, we wouldn't be feeling that hard, not, I don't want to say hard stretch, because all asanas should ideally be done asanam sukham stiram. Sukham with ease and stiram, steady. Whereas yin yoga, it targets a much deeper aspect of the body.
Hmm.
So any kind of physical yoga poses we do can get to the muscles, and we know muscles are connected and extend out into tendons, and those connect onto the bones. And we know that we have ligaments which connect bone to bone.
Hmm.
In most, not all, but in most physical asana practices, we don't really target the ligaments as deeply.
Hmm.
Whereas yin, it holds the position for so long with just that perfect amount of tension and stress that we're able to remodel the body by targeting those ligaments.
Okay.
The other thing about yin is it goes into the deep, deep fascia.
Okay.
So any type of exercise program is good for the fascia, good for the ligaments, good for the muscles and tendons.
Hmm.
But yin yoga in particular goes into the much deeper fascia. So if
Hmm.
we understand fascia, we know that every muscle fiber is covered with a layer of fascia. And then every muscle bundle is covered with a layer of fascia. And then every muscle grouping is layered with fascia. And we know we have fascia holding our organs, supporting them, and moving them. But when we do yin yoga, we're not only targeting muscles and tendons, ligaments on a much deeper level, but we're targeting the fascia in a
Hmm.
much deeper level. And the fascia is also related to like the second nervous system.
Right.
Fascia actually secretes and has a biofeedback system with the nervous system and even the neurochemicals and different hormones are released through the signals from the fascia.
Hmm.
So, one thing that is pretty standard in a yin yoga class or a yin yoga training is understanding where emotions are held in the fascia.
Oh
Because we
yeah.
know that body memory is real and that emotions and certain psychological patterns are held. If I'm always afraid, I'm going to tend to hold my body up like this.
Hmm.
If I'm always angry, I'm going to tend to hold my body in a certain way, and that affects my muscles, my tendons, my ligaments, my fascia. But in yin yoga in particular, we open up those fascia emotional holding spaces. I
Hmm.
remember when I did my yin yoga teacher training, I was like, how come I'm always a student who's crying? I'm done crying in class. Or they put me in some other yin position and I'd be like angry. I was like, why am I so emotional in this class? It just stinks. Here I'm supposed to be this fancy student and
Hmm.
I'm all a bundle of raw emotions.
Hmm.
And over the years teaching yin yoga, students really will say, I held those positions and something just left me.
Hmm.
The pattern, the holding left. So when I teach yin yoga, I do two different modalities. Number one, We look at the body from a traditional Chinese medicine aspect, and we track and trace all the meridians through the body, the primary meridians. And so we'll be able to say, okay, this position targets these meridians, and this is what's held and what is promoted through health in these traditional Chinese medicine meridians.
Hmm.
And the other format I do it in are the chakras. So in Ayurvedic medicine, we look at marmas, which are different from meridians, but it's just another way to understand the body. And certain marmas hold certain types of emotions.
Right.
And we have the interlinking with the chakras. So Yin Yoga, one, phenomenal for remodeling the body.
Hmm.
Any asana program is excellent for that, but yin has its own unique standards.
Hmm.
And then it goes deep into the meridians, deep into the marmas, deep into the fascia and the emotional body.
Hmm.
So some people come to yin class and they're like, man, I didn't expect to have such a emotional shift. And
Yeah.
I say it's nice because you don't really have to get involved with the circumstance or reason of the emotion.
Right.
Just get rid of it.
Right. Right. If it's not
Like,
working, it's not serving anymore. Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so I have a background in physical therapy, and I've taken that out of all the things I learned, myofascial unwinding was the most profound for me. And I went on to take extensive courses with John Barnes,
Mhm.
who's kind of the guru of myofascial unwinding. And he has a center in Sedona and a center in Philadelphia. And man, I mean, when I was going into those spaces, it was bringing back past lifetime memories. It was putting me through these blocked out memories of this little, and I've mentioned it on previous podcasts, but there was one incident where this little boy, when I was little, he was maybe like a year or two older than me. He was trying to drown me,
Mm,
and I was like doing these motions, like trying to swim
mhm.
up, and it brought back that memory which was blocked out, and then I was able to move through the energy and move through the motions of it and the memories of it and rewire it to forgive him and to like be like, okay, he was, you know, probably going through a tough time with his dad or his parents, and he was just trying to figure it out, and we were like 8 or 9 years old, so I forgave him, sent him love, and then that part of myself was unwound, and I was able to release that from my system. And I'm sure that there are these beautiful opportunities in yin yoga as well with that type of myofascial release.
Yeah. And it's nice because in the format that it was taught to me and in the format that I continue to teach it, we know which pose is going to target which emotional center, which chakra center, which meridian, which marma. And then we can go in and say, I set the intention to release anything of this nature. I know for me, I was able to release a lot of deep-seated anger, deep-seated sadness, and just a sense of violent hatred from
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
And so many other students say the same thing. Whatever it is that they have been kind of holding on to in the physical blueprint, they have the opportunity to just say, oh, it was just a tangling. And now I don't have to be tangled up like that anymore. I'll just let go of it. I often give the example, let's say you get a phone call and something traumatic is learned. What do we do first? We
Hmm.
constrict with our body, we constrict with our energy, we constrict with the fascia inside. And the longer we hold that response, the more deep it's embedded inside of us, even though whatever happened is long gone.
Hmm.
And just remodeling the body will allow the rest of the layers to come into effect. Like a trickle up, trickle down effect. But first,
Mhm.
we have to get the knots out of the actual physical body.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm curious about pigeon pose. You mentioned that, right? Is that targeting the sacral and the root chakras primarily?
It does. What, depending on the way the position is held, it can also target higher up. Like if you go into king pigeon and you've got that big spinal flexion holding on, but with a what we call sleeping pigeon, where the body is laid out flat, so the legs in front, and then we bring the head down, then
Mhm.
we're targeting mostly Muladhara, root chakra, and Swadhisthana inside the sacral area. And
Okay.
you'll see some people will come into even just that simple position, and there's this resistance, this emotional, I don't
Mhm.
like this position. And
Yeah.
I'll say, why do you not like the position? Is it painful? Is it hurting your hip? Is it hurting your knee? Is it, too deep in the groin? And they'll say, no, physically it feels fine. And I'll say, "Hmm,
Right.
something holding there." And I'll say, just take big, easy, deep breaths through it. Just, let it release. And then all of a sudden you'll see a couple tears come out and they'll say, I don't even know what that was about. And I'll say, you don't even have to know what it's about.
Right.
We
Right.
just work through it, let it go.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, I know pigeon pose is really powerful for a lot of people because a lot of people hold a lot of energy in that pelvic region, and it's, you know, a lot of times a lot of energy that has been pent up there. I know for myself when I hold pigeon, there's definitely a release that happens when I lean into it. So it's a good reminder. I'm going to practice some this weekend. So what about yoga nidra?
Oh, yoga nidra. That's a hot topic for me.
Hmm.
So there's different types of yoga nidra. There's
Hmm.
the yoga nidra that we here in the US know about, and
Hmm.
there's the original form of yoga nidra that came from India.
Hmm.
So when Yoga Nidra came over here into the United States I want to say, I'd have to look at my lecture notes. It was in the 1900s.
Hmm.
It was dramatically altered so that the people in the US could relate to it. So
Okay.
traditional US based yoga nidra, we go through this whole process, engaging with the breathing, setting a sankalpa, moving deep into the breath, moving into the body, withdrawing the senses inward, except listening to the person who is guiding the meditation. If there's
Hmm.
somebody guiding it, we can do it on our own. And usually it goes somewhere along the lines of we're laying flat in Shavasana, completely relaxed on our backs, and we rotate the consciousness through the body.
Hmm.
So usually, we rotate our awareness and we relax and, find wellness in the right eye. And then the left eye, and then the right cheek and the left cheek, and the upper lip and the lower lip, and the upper teeth and the lower teeth, and the right ear, the left ear, the right hand, the right arm, the right foot, the right toe.
All the
Good
way through the body.
45 minutes at least.
Uh-huh.
And then sometimes we come back up the body, we go back up to the head, and ta-da, we feel incredible because we've placed our consciousness, our breath, and our awareness throughout the entire body. And
Hmm.
it brings a deep sense of like we've had a deep sleep. Yoga Nidra. Nidra is the word for sleep.
Mm.
Now, that's the way we've learned it here in the United States. But before it was brought to the United States, Yoga Nidra was more deeply enmeshed in the Vedic principles of mantra and nasya. Not nasya in the nose, but creating a shield on the body. So, one of the original Yoga Nidras is we talked about it for 2 cents on the last episode. the installation of the alphabet over the body. So if
Okay.
we think about it, here we wake up in the morning, we go to our sacred space, our altar, we find our breath, maybe we've done some candle gazing, some oming, and then that form of yoga nidra would be to install the entire alphabet. And oddly enough, it covers the whole body. Top of
Mm.
the head, the third eye, the right eye, the left eye, ah, ah, ooh, ooh, loom, a, I, o, ow, ah, and then down the arms to the fingertips, down the other arm to the fingertips, down the leg to the toe tips, down the other leg to the toe tips, the back, the belly, up the center of the spine. And so it mirrors what we know as Yoga Nidra here in the United States. And it
Mm.
used to be coupled much deeper and is still traditionally practiced through yogis, people who practice Hinduism or Tantra, and they use mantras. So it's
Okay.
usually a solo practice rather than a group class.
Hmm.
And they're at their altar placing all these mantras over their body, rotating their consciousness at the same time.
Okay, so I didn't realize that that was the connection with the Sanskrit alphabet. That's really beautiful.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and each so is it done in a seated position? Is it done traditionally laying down?
It depends on who you've learned from. So
Okay.
each person I've learned it from, it's done in a seated, cross-legged Padmasana, like a lotus position or an easy crisscross applesauce position.
Hmm.
But you can do it laying flat in Shavasana. But traditionally, if it's a deep meditative position, we want to be sitting up.
Okay.
However, if it's for the purpose of, let's say, releasing and relaxing, then it can be done in flat shavasana. But I've
Okay.
only been taught traditionally I'm sitting up. Whereas if you go to a yoga nidra class, everybody's laying down.
Right, right.
Same effects.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is there a different goal? Is there a different it seems like it's more of a meditative practice when you're doing the writing of the letters. Is
Mhm.
that what's the goal with that? Just to get the awareness of the body, using the mantra to heal in these deeper parts, and then is there a practice that follows that, like a deep meditative just sitting with it?
Mhm. So if we do it sitting up, let's just say in the way that I've been taught, because there's
Hmm.
a lot of different techniques and a lot of different methods.
Hmm.
Sitting up, for instance, when I do the installation of the alphabet, it's considered a kavacha, a shield, a
Okay.
protection all around and throughout and inside each body part. So first it's going in and saying, I get rid of imbalances here. Ah, and through the vibration, you're implanting a seed that brings out the highest quality there and
Hmm.
gets rid of anything that's wonky in that
Okay.
area. And it's considered a shield over the entire body. So,
Okay.
just for example, if we're doing Kalima's alphabet, the Sanskrit alphabet, we're doing it in a state of devotional meditation. So we're basically saying, Mother, Ma, Jema, come, come, cleanse me in every body location and bring power and strength and protection and guard me and guide me. And I know the sound that will do it. Ooh, ooh,
Mm.
going through the whole sound system.
Hmm.
Now, afterwards, depending on training or lineage, then oftentimes it's onto devotional activities. Maybe you do some candle gazing, trataka, for a while, and a deeper meditation, bringing in the sankalpa that you set. Whereas other people, right after that, they may get up and start doing puja, the ringing of the bell, the waving of the fire, the waving of the incense, the waving of the flowers. And it might move them more into a tantric bhakti type of setting where they're giving reverence and honor. Whereas usually when we do it here at the ashram, we know it's Kali Ma Day. We're going to sit
Mm,
down, we're going to do our Om shields, we're going to sit, we're going to do the entire alphabet and rotate our consciousness.
mhm,
And then typically it's time to start the waving of the lamp, the waving of the incense, the waving of the flowers, the offering of the water, the food, and then out into the backyard and throwing into the fire pit.
mhm. Okay.
But
That's
if I'm
really
all by myself, I might do the alphabet and then go into an asana practice.
okay. Okay. So it basically it can be modified to however the person wants to devote themselves and to go deeper with it. And is it traditionally used henna to draw the alphabet, or can it be just drawn with the finger without any uh, ink?
On the body, we usually just use the very specific mudra, which is interesting because this is to get rid of the evil eye, right?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, you see that like Dio.
Hmm.
People get that confused. They say, oh, it's a sign of the devil. And it's not the sign of the devil at all. It's to get rid of the evil eye. And this is the mudra that we use in almost all Vedic offerings. So if we
Mm.
take a scoop of, let's say, sesame seeds and we're going to put them into the fire, this is the mudra. So when we place the alphabet on the body, this is also the mudra that's used. So we just place the fingers onto that location and we don't necessarily draw it. Now, if you're advanced, then you use the power of the manas, the mind, to draw the alphabet symbol inside the body.
Okay, okay. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And so can each finger has a different planet associated with it, right? And
Mhm.
different earth elements, and we have all types of things happening when we do mudras, right? So when we're doing that mudra that you just showed, which what's can you explain a little bit about like what we're trying to activate by holding the thumb to the middle finger and the ring finger?
Well, it's a traditional mudra, but if we look at the hand, now there's two different lineages that describe two different sets of elements, the same elements but different fingers. But the most widely understood lineage is this is the fire finger.
The
They,
thumb.
the fire finger is God consciousness, superior consciousness. And
Hmm.
then we have the index finger, which is the air element.
Hmm.
Or they also associate it with Jupiter or the ego. So what do we do when we're flexing our ego?
Uh-huh.
Right?
Pointing at people, right? Yeah.
Our middle finger is associated with space element. And oddly enough, when you really want space, what finger do we flip up at people?
Right.
It's just an interesting correlation.
Hmm.
And then we have the earth finger. So
Hmm.
the earth finger is nice and grounding and stable. This is typically the finger that we place a wedding ring on, things like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And then we have the water finger. So when we're doing this particular mudra, we're combining the fire finger with the space and the earth finger.
Okay.
We're giving offerings in that nature.
Okay.
And you can see the use of fingers in a lot of different mudras and a lot of different ways of moving the energy in the body or working with the planets in the body. Like, for instance, when we do japa mala and we're meditating with our hands in a bag of mantra beads, you'll often see there's a hole in the top of the bag and we poke our index finger out. We
Hmm.
exclude our ego finger from it. And then we round the beads, and it almost looks like the exact same mudra.
Oh, yeah.
because we're moving it this way.
Right. That
Yeah.
makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, yeah, thanks for explaining that. That was really beautiful and thorough. It cleared up some things that I was trying to understand as well, for sure. So, uh, one yoga we haven't touched on yet is Kundalini Yoga.
Mm. Now, I am by far not a Kundalini certified teacher because there's a whole special training that you go through for Kundalini. You can teach Kundalini, but to say you're a Kundalini teacher, there's an entire lineage that you're trained through. I
Yeah,
think.
I went through it's a 9 month training that I went through, which is like a full rebirth.
Hmm.
And it was life changing. Life changing just going through the training and then the practice itself. The first time I ever tried it was this tiny little studio in Scranton, Pennsylvania, of all places. And the experience I had was so profound. I My third eye just blasted open. It was my first time experiencing that. And I started seeing like all these past lifetimes, and it was just something I've never experienced before, and it was really, really powerful. And from that first class, I was like, I need to teach this. And I had been going through all these different types of yogas, trying. My soul was like, nope, that's not the one. It's nice, but that's not it. Keep going, keep going. And then when I found Kundalini, I was like, that's what I was searching for, and that's what I'm here to teach. So yeah, it's it's not for everyone.
No.
Definitely not for everyone, I don't think. I mean, maybe at some point, but it is really, really for those that are really committed to it and really devoted. It
Yeah.
can be completely life changing.
Yeah, and the way I describe it, since I'm not a Kundalini teacher, I've been to lots of Kundalini classes, that when you're going to a traditional Kundalini class, I describe it as you'll see things more like this.
Hmm.
More consistent movements. Instead of just doing cat, cow,
Hmm.
you're going to see more breath of fire happening. And
Yeah.
the whole goal is to awaken the Kundalini from the root chakra, to bring it up and stimulate the energy center. So there's a lot of, neurodynamic untangling and much more consistent breathing as well. Um, it's phenomenal, I think. As long as you can get past maybe the initial appearance of it and
Right.
just set the ego aside and get down on the ground and try it, it's
Mhm.
phenomenal.
Yeah, it
Phenomenal.
can look really strange for people that are looking in. There's a lot of really interesting movements and things that we're doing with our breath and but once you can move that aside,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean it is a technology. It's like
Yes.
it's working on very specific aspects, and regardless of the different dramas that have happened in that world, it is the actual technology of it and the practice is just life altering from my experience. Yeah.
Agreed. And I find that if I go into just an run-of-the-mill normal yoga class, a traditional Kundalini class, I'm going to see right off the bat typically people who have a different gearing towards spirituality. They're wearing the white,
Hmm.
more likely in cotton
Hmm.
or linen, not wrapped up in cellophane spandex pants.
Right.
They have the head covering. They have a mantra, a reverence. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen in other yoga classes, but let's get down to the truth of it. A lot of times it's just a physical fitness class, and
Mhm.
everybody has on their spandex pants, and there's sometimes a lot of spirituality missing,
Hmm.
which is fine. We all start somewhere, and that's acceptable. But Kundalini, I usually find when you walk in, you're already at a higher bar.
Hmm.
It's not to say that your average, yin class, you're not going to find the same thing,
Hmm.
but it's already geared towards that spiritual awakening rather than bikini bottom body for summertime.
Right, right, right.
You know?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
one thing I want to mention is in Kundalini Yoga, there's a meditation built into every class. So that's another big difference.
Mhm.
And the breath is mostly through the nose. The majority of the movements have the breath through the nose, very powerful breathing
Nidra
associated with the movements.
infused. Yeah.
And it's very internal. We're not looking at our neighbors. We're not caring about who's holding what pose. It's eyes closed, focus at the third eyebrow point,
There's
and
no kids, no puppies.
no, no goats walking on your on your back, right? Yeah, which is cool, like
It's fun.
there's an that I think that's awesome that's something that evolved,
I agree. I agree.
Goats are super cool. But yeah, I haven't seen a goat Kundalini yoga class yet.
Please don't. I might get mad secretly. I'll be mad here at home.
A Kundalini puppy class might be nice, but it would take the focus from internal, right? And that's the whole point is to go very internal. It's considered the yoga of awareness. And I'm trying to think. So we've covered Ashtanga, which is like very intense, really like pretzel like movement, like poses.
Exact sequences, exact alignment.
Right, like very flexible. I associate it with a lot of flexibility to get into those poses. It takes,
Strengthening.
yeah,
Quite a
very strong and flexible at the same time.
bit.
Then we have the Yin Yoga, which we just talked about, the Yoga Nidra. Then we have Bikram Yoga, Kundalini Yoga. Uh, then we have Vinyasa Yoga, which is more of a flow. Um, and then, am I, am I missing
That's
anything?
pretty, there's a lot of newer ones out there until they said you couldn't trademark yoga anymore.
Right.
There's all sorts of forest yoga, naked yoga, goat yoga. And what I like to say is if you go back in time and look at some of the oldest yoga books, let's say the oldest Hatha yoga book, there's only like 10 poses in there.
Mm,
If you go even further back to the yoga book that was first written that we know of as humans, it's the Bhagavad Gita. There
mm,
are no yoga poses at all.
mm-hmm,
Not even one.
mm-hmm,
Not even one.
mm-hmm.
So here in the United States, we learn a lot about the physicality of yoga. It seems to be the first thing that draws people in. But when we really understand yoga, like I said in Kundalini, I see them moving towards that spiritual development much more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we kind of get away from what was brought from India and then trademarked here in the United States.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. But either way, I think all the different types of yogas are amazing.
they are.
And
They
I
are.
think that whichever one you choose to practice or try, it's worth trying them all and seeing which one resonates for you in that moment because for me right now, some yin yoga would be really helpful. And, there's all of them, I believe, are really helpful for the
They are.
world and for the mass awakening. So,
They are. And they
uh,
bring us into our body, they awaken the body, and then we can move out, from the body sheath to the breath sheath to the mind sheath. And they get us at least moving on that pathway. And they're very important. My Guru Ma always says moving the body is very important for spirituality.
Hmm.
My spiritual father, my Baba, he says, use the body, use it correctly, make it not a burden on yourself, make it not a burden on your mind, and make it so that it is a tool towards our evolution.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so that kind of bridges over into how you teach yoga at the university. Can you share a
Mm,
little bit about that? Like, are you sharing about the old text, the Bhagavad Gita? Like, where? I'm so curious.
mm. Well, I teach yoga in several formats. So I teach year-round here at the ashram, and we focus a lot on philosophy, we focus a lot on devotion, we do even nutrition, cooking. But when I'm teaching specifically at the university, they are incorporated into the Ayurvedic medical program. So these
Okay.
are medical professionals. They're getting either their 1 year wellness educator licensing or they're getting a 2 year certification to be Ayurvedic practitioners. So in year one, our main curriculum, of course, we start right off the bat with philosophy. We learn the 8 limbs of yoga, yamas, niyamas, asanas, pranayama, breathwork, pratyahara, sense withdrawal, and how to move into concentration, mantra, meditation, and finally samadhi. And
Hmm.
they learn about the limbs of yoga, they learn about the types of yoga like we've been talking about. And then they get a very specific, I call it tool chest of yogic series. Most of the ones that we utilize, of course, traditional Surya Namaskar, individual poses, but we also focus heavy on the series called Pawan Muktasana 1, 2, and 3. And these are considered subtle movements because what they're going to use them for is, let's say, a 78-year-old female with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and heart disease comes into the university clinic.
Hmm.
How are they going to impart yoga to that client
Right.
through their disease process or to prevent disease? So, year one, we focus all the yoga poses. They learn, I think, 12 different breath techniques, and they learn it from a standpoint of, is this heating or cooling?
Hmm.
Does this target the, Agni in the chest or the Agni in the gut? Does
Hmm.
this work on the mind? And in what level does it work on the mind? Is it for somebody with depression or more for somebody with anxiety? And why? And how many minutes? And how often? And for how long?
Hmm.
And then they learn about the tenets of meditation and then moving towards, more deeper practices like mantra and devotion. But
Okay.
year one is all about disease prevention through that tool chest. And then in year two, they're more advanced already. They're already seeing medical patients at the university clinic or even out on their own. And they move more from education, disease prevention, and they go into disease treatment. So
Mm.
we take it from the standpoint, we go through the entire body and all of what are called the shrotas. So the shrotas in the body are like all the systems, the blood plasma. What are the diseases that arise out of the blood? What are the diseases that arise out of the breath? What are the diseases that arise out of digestion problems, et cetera, et cetera? And so we go through each of those disease processes and say, okay, so you have a 45-year-old female with emphysema, asthma, chronic mucoid cough, indigestion, and has this knee problem and a hip replacement.
Hmm.
What is going to be your clinical recommendations for them?
Hmm.
And what are the benefits? What are the medical indications? And what are the cautions and contraindications?
Hmm.
And so we usually, year two, we go through case studies and how to apply not only the asanas to treat disease, how to apply breathwork, pranayama to treat disease, how to apply meditation to treat disease, and then how to even incorporate in subtle therapies, aromatherapies, whether they be topical for pain relief, whether they be, stimulating to the mind,
Mhm.
etc.
Mhm.
And that's how we've developed the curriculum there. And
Beautiful.
they really come out of that program with a wealth of knowledge because they're going usually straight into clinical medical practice.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a 2-year program to become an Ayurvedic practitioner.
Yes.
Okay.
If if time. Full time.
Full time?
Yeah.
Okay. And then then you can continue on to get your doctorate in it?
Only in certain university settings.
Okay.
Currently, CUHS does not have a doctorate program. They're working on developing a master's program.
Okay.
Ayurvedic system. I
Hmm.
went to the American University of Complementary Medicine in Beverly Hills
Hmm.
while they still had a doctorate program. But an accredited Doctor of Ayurveda program is very few and far in between. Very, very rigorous. Years and years and years. You had to have a master's degree just to get accepted into the program.
Okay.
Obviously because it's
Right.
not, just a wellness educator or a 2-year practitioner program. It's a medical doctor degree.
Right, right. Okay. And how many more years was that after the practitioner
Mm.
degree?
I went straight. So I took a little bit of time, maybe 6 months, doing the little certificate classes, dibbling my fingers in, tucking my toes in the water, seeing if I liked it. And
Hmm.
then I said, okay, I'm not going to do the certificate program. I'm going straight for the doctorate program.
Hmm.
And it took me, I believe, 6 years.
Oh, wow.
In
Total.
addition to already having my nurse practitioner, Master of Science.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot of education. That's a lot of beautiful study. Yeah.
I was the
That's
cutest cat. I wanted to know it all.
Yeah, I know.
As
I
much as I
know.
could.
That's beautiful. I'm really happy that you went down that journey. You're such a wealth of knowledge and wisdom. It's I love talking with you.
Thank you.
So I think we've covered the differences of the different yogas. We've covered the yoga curriculum. Uh, and since we're talking about Ayurveda, this is a perfect time to transition into Ayurvedic emotional regulation techniques and Ayurvedic mental and spiritual regulation.
One of my favorite topics. So, the first thing that I like to explain from an Ayurvedic standpoint is the mind is different from the brain. The brain belongs to the biological substrate of the body,
Hmm.
whereas the mind does not belong to the body.
Hmm.
The mind follows the soul. So, one of our highest goals in this lifetime is to purify the ego, purify the mind, so that after we leave this physical body, or while we're still in this body, for crying out loud, that
Hmm.
the mind becomes evolved. So in Ayurveda, they have, especially in the text Charaka Samhita, that's one of the books, the author's Charaka, old, old, old book. Um, so they look at the mind from the standpoint, most of us know what's my physical Prakruti or what's my Ayurvedic body type, Pitta Kapha, am I Kapha Pitta, am I Vata Kapha, etc. But we also have mental types, which are very different. So in Ayurveda, we have Manas Prakruti, which is mind constitutions.
Okay.
So first we have to know like what are the major influences. So the mind is governed not it is governed by Vata Pitta Kapha, but mind types are either sattvic, tamasic, or rajasic. So sattvic energy just in itself is very peaceful, very calm, very centered, loving, devoted, loyal, higher learning, creativity.
Hmm.
Whereas Rajasic energy or tendencies tend to be people who are more like leaders, warriors, sports-oriented people, very outgoing natured. They tend to be more organizers and upward and outward moving energy.
Hmm.
Whereas tamasic energy is like when we're sleeping. It's
Mm.
lunar energy, the cool energy, the opening up of potential energy. However, tamasic personality types tend to be a little lower in IQ. And this is just from the textbook, so I'm not making this up.
Hmm.
Lesser IQ,
Hmm.
less inspired, less motivated, more sloth-like,
Hmm.
more greedy, and less desirable characteristics. Like they'll turn on you if their needs aren't met.
Mm.
So there's this whole long, long description of all the different types of tamasic personality bases,
Hmm.
Rajasic personality bases. Rajasic personalities tend to be more, they like to eat, they like to dance, they like to sing, they're a little more lusty and passionate, and
Hmm.
whereas Sattvic mental types are more peaceful and calm and higher education types of modalities.
Hmm.
Now, when we look, so it's important to not only know what your physical body type is in Ayurveda. I'm Pitta Kapha.
Hmm.
Like you said, you're probably Pitta Kapha. Just by
Hmm.
looking at you, you're probably Pitta Kapha.
Right.
But also, what is your Manas Prakruti? What's your mind type? Like one
Mm.
here in this lifetime, what is your natural personality proclivity? And how can we evolve it? Because we
Hmm.
can evolve the personality. The body type you can't change. If you're Pitta Kapha, you're Pitta Kapha.
Hmm.
Maybe you'll get Kapha out of balance. Maybe you get Pitta out of balance. Maybe you get Vata out of balance, but you can't change body type.
Hmm.
You can change your mind disposition.
Hmm.
So another thing that we look at with emotional regulation is we look at those crisscrossing energies that I think we discussed a little bit last time, the Ida, the Pingala, the
Hmm.
energy that's upward and solar or Rajasic, and the energy that's downward flowing, lunar, Yin or Tamasic.
Hmm.
Now, if the body is out of balance, let's say Kapha out of balance,
Hmm.
we're more likely to experience tamasic mental influence. So somebody who's, let's say, gained 150 pounds, or sitting around, they're eating too much bread and coffee kind of foods. All of a sudden they're like, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm crying, I'm reclusive, I'm so dark and uninspired. And you're like, is that your norm? They're like, no, it's not my norm.
Hmm.
And I'll say, then it's a somatic disorder. It's coming from the doshas crossing the mind channels within the heart and going up into the mind sheath.
Okay.
Same thing if somebody is pitta aggravated, too much fire and greasy. All of a sudden they're like, I'm angry, I'm cranky, I'm bitchy, I'm impatient, everybody's wrong and I'm blaming people and I'm competitive and I'm gonna get you, that kind of attitude.
Hmm.
Then we'll say, like, is that your normal? And they'll say, no, it's not. And I'll say, maybe you got to back off the hot sauce, the French fries, the mustard, the,
Mm.
salsas, the certain types of foods, because it's just coming out of the body. That's all it is. It's just coming out of the body.
It's just the body's getting too heated, right?
hmm And then it translates into the mind.
Hmm.
Same thing if Vata from a somatic level gets out of balance. So Vata we know is air and space. So if we have too much air and space lifestyle, skipping foods, running around, being in the cold, or too much Vata foods like ice, sugar, salads as a meal, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. Anyways, if we're not able to tolerate that, then Vata comes up out of the body and invades the mind. We
Mm.
see like anxiety, insomnia, generalized fear, jittery, hyperactivity disorder,
Mm-hmm.
a Vata disorder. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we also start seeing things like hyperactive talking, running all around, and you're like being very indecisive or impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll say, like, is this your normal? And they'll say, no, it's just been for the last year I'm like this. And I'll say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that is a dosha influencing the mind.
Mm.
So in Ayurveda, when somebody comes with a mental dysregulation, first, we decide, is it psychological? Like, did somebody die? Did you lose a job? Did you get divorced? Did you get attacked? Do you have trauma? Like, is it actually originating out of what I like to call emotional mental indigestion?
Yeah.
Or is it just coming from food and lifestyle imbalance?
Mm-hmm.
Being out too long, not getting enough sleep, not eating what's appropriate for their body type, or maybe the season shifted. Maybe somebody went from California to Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're like, I don't know what happened to me. Now I feel like a basket case. And I'll say, the doshas changed inside the body.
I feel like those can be at the same time though, right? Where you can have psychological effects and then that'll influence your doshas because you're gonna there's like there's possibilities that people will change their diet because they're wanting more comfort foods and wanting to having less energy to cook or whatever may be the case, right?
100%. Or let's just take the example of stress, just your run-of-the-mill average stress.
Mm-hmm.
That will affect the nervous system, the cardiovascular system, the blood flow, and method in which we digest our food. And then just those systems being affected by stress will then cause a dosha to go out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say somebody is in grief and they're
Mm-hmm.
not cooking the way they normally do, they're not exercising the way they normally do, and the effect of grief is affecting their organ function and digestion.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's a trickle up or a trickle down effect.
Mm-hmm.
In Ayurveda, we try to delineate, is it psychosomatic, coming out of the doshas of the body due to diet and lifestyle? Or is it psychological? Or is it some sort of combination of the two?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in Ayurveda, one of the first things we recommend for any type of emotional dysregulation, whether it's from the food and lifestyle, whether it's be from trauma, immediately we look at diet, adjust the diet to
Mm-hmm.
adjust the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go into lifestyle. Sometimes just waking up 1 hour earlier will change the entire digestive system and mental system.
Mm-hmm.
Then we look at things like how's the person breathing? Are they breathing anxious? Are
Mm-hmm.
they breathing angry? Are they breathing sad?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we teach them breath regulation to like break up that negative feedback system.
Okay.
Because we know that, let's just say I breathe like I'm angry and irritated all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know how people breathe like an angry bull, right?
Right.
And then they kind of tone it back because people are like, what? What's going on? And then they're like, right. So it becomes less and less noticeable, but they're still doing it continuously.
Right.
We teach them a breath technique to insert in and break up that associated pattern because If I breathe angry all the time, let's say I'm not even angry, but I breathe on purpose like I'm angry, my deep brain reptile mind doesn't know the difference.
Hmm.
If I always breathe like I'm nervous, my body doesn't know the difference. It just says something's wrong out there. Look at how she's breathing or how he's breathing.
Hmm.
And so then a whole biochemical cascade occurs.
Hmm.
Whereas if we can just inject a breath technique, let's say 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes before lunch, 10 minutes before dinner, and 10 minutes at bedtime. I mean, that's 40 minutes of breathing,
Hmm.
which is a good amount, but it's
Hmm.
just broken into 10-minute chunks.
Hmm.
We can effectively disrupt that previous breath feedback programming and completely change the way they feel. We just have to
Hmm.
pick the right breath technique.
Okay. And this is really powerful to learn all this. And I'm really curious, what happens during a trigger, for example? What's happening in the Ayurvedic systems? Is is there because during a trigger, a lot of times people start to feel like they don't have control over their breath or over their reactivity, right? And so,
Mhm.
can you share a little bit about that? I'm
Yeah.
really curious
Yeah.
about that.
So the first thing that happens in an emotional trigger is the deep brain stem immediately says, whoa, incoming threat, whether it's real or just perceived. Sometimes people just smell a smell and then an entire trigger happens, an emotional trigger. So the deep brain will say fight, flight. You
Hmm.
have two nervous systems.
Hmm.
Well, we have one nervous system, but we have two separate branches. We
Right.
have sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system. So when a trigger occurs, the deep brain immediately says incoming threat, even
Hmm.
if it's only a perceived threat.
Hmm.
Immediately, the sympathetic nervous system begins to pump out epinephrine and norepinephrine. So the person starts feeling out of control, shaky, their pupils change. At the same time, blood is shunted away from the digestive system out into the muscle system. So we can either fight or flight,
Hmm.
fight, flight response.
Hmm.
So if I was to be in the emergency department resuscitating a cardiac arrest, we inject epinephrine to boost the blood pressure, the heart rate, and re-stimulate the heart. We don't need that if we're just sitting around thinking about a memory from 20 years ago because then it makes us feel completely out of control, shaky, jittery, anxious. And then we get anxious about feeling anxious. We
Hmm.
get anxious about feeling this
Hmm.
shaky, oh my gosh, what is this crazy feeling I'm having? And then it just snowballs onto itself. The breathing changes, the body locks up, the digestive system locks up, the entire subtle body constricts and contracts in, and then the aura shrinks down. Whereas when we look at it from an Ayurvedic and yogic standpoint, we say, as soon as the trigger occurs, what's your rescue breath technique? What's your rescue mudra technique? So, like if the person becomes triggered and they say, oh, recognized, triggered, strike a pose immediately, come into a mudra.
Hmm.
And it causes like a Pavlov's response. So instead of the trigger hijacking the sympathetic nervous system, they say, oh, trigger. Oh no. Okay, I'm going down the rabbit hole.
Hmm.
Finger mudra, head mudra. So a lot of times it helps to engage Khechari mudra. You take the tongue and push it onto the roof of the mouth.
Hmm.
Close the eyes, or you can leave them open if they're nervous, because sometimes it's a hyper vigilance response, and closing the eyes is scarier. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe they immediately say, okay, I'm going to visualize that candle right in front of my third eye. I'm going to still my eyes. I'm going to still my tongue. I'm going to still my fingers and begin, let's say, Ujjayi Pranayama, a breath technique that they know they're going to utilize every time they're triggered.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they might have to get triggered 10 times and practice these techniques before they really see a difference. But what I teach the students at the university is if you have somebody who has regular triggers, you tell them, look, this is the technique you're going to practice twice a day. Let's just say, for instance, candle gazing, internal light gazing, Petri Mudra, let's just say Chin Mudra, and Ujjayi Pranayama. Because those are things that they can do without looking too weird. Like alternate nostril breathing, people are like, what are you doing? I'm in the grocery store doing that. Ujjayi, nobody knows you're really doing it.
Right.
We'll say, practice that twice a day, every day. And then when the trigger comes, you already know how to use those tools. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll say, ooh, I'm triggered. Recognized. Okay, Ujjayi Pranayama, tongue still, eyes still, fingers even in my pocket, locked up.
Mm-hmm.
And then they start using those techniques regularly to disrupt that trigger. And they can be highly successful. I used to use it a lot at the hospital with patients who had pain medication addiction, drug addiction, as well as like anti-anxiety addictions,
Mm-hmm.
like benzodiazepine dependency, Xanax, Ativan, muscle relaxant dependencies, even opiate dependencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, before you take your medication, I want you to mark on your log. Did 5 minutes of Ujjayi, did 5 minutes of, mudra, whatever that they were taught, and then re-rate your pain, re-rate your anxiety. Oh, you're a 10
Mm-hmm.
out of 10 right now? Humor me with 5 minutes of rescue remedy, and then maybe you'll only be a 5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you don't even need the medication.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Very
that's profound. So for those that don't know what Ujjayi breathing is, can you share a little bit about that?
Ujjayi is really nice because nobody sees you doing it per se. So
Mm-hmm.
some breathing techniques, like let's say I'm triggered at the grocery store and I'm gonna do breath of fire. People are gonna look at me weird because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, what's that lady doing? Or
Right.
like alternate nostril breathing. I'm not gonna do that triggered at the grocery store because people will be looking at you weird.
Uh-huh.
Whereas Ujjayi, the word Ujjayi means victorious.
Mm.
So we become victorious over our breathing, our mind, and emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So Ujjayi, if done correctly, most people aren't aware that you're doing it. But what we do is first we engage a very special area of the throat called the glottis. So if I open up my mouth and breathe, no sound.
Uh-huh.
If I try to make a sound on inhale and exhale, that's a little Darth Vader-ish. We could
Right.
go really, really quiet. And then I close my mouth and I try to create that slight constriction in my throat so that I can hear the inhale and hear the exhale, like you're pretending you're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And you can audibly hear your own inhale and exhale. And then you turn it down, 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 down to the tiniest volume possible. And then you relax the throat, you relax the jaw, and then you start a nice pattern. Let's say an inhale into the count of 6, pause, and I can hear the whole inhale, and then a full exhale to 6. And I can hear it. One of the benefits of hearing your breath is a higher level of awareness of it.
Hmm.
If I'm not listening for my breath, I might forget that I was supposed to even be listening for my breath.
Right.
Ujjayi gives people the ability to feel in control of their breathing. It will, within a few minutes, if done correctly and practiced, disengage the sympathetic nervous system and re-engage the parasympathetic nervous system so
Hmm.
that we have that rest, digest mode, that feed, breed mode that comes back in.
Hmm.
Um, but I often tell people if you don't practice the technique when there's nothing wrong, it might not help when there's something suddenly wrong. It's like
Hmm.
going to Home Depot and buying a chainsaw. And then as the tree is falling on your house, you're trying to get it out of the box.
Right.
Yeah, you don't even know how to use it.
Right.
So we got to practice using the technique reliably, consistently. And then when something crazy happens, somebody, I don't know, cuts you off in the grocery line, you're just like this, oh.
Hmm.
And the only person who knows you're doing controlled breathing is you.
Right.
Because nice and quiet.
So with the Ujjayi, does it matter if it's through the nose, through the mouth? Is it
I
preferable through the nose?
ideally only through the nose.
Okay.
The
And
only one we teach through the mouth, I mean, there are several that are through the mouth, like a lion's breath, sticking your tongue out,
right, right.
um, or sheathily and sheathkari through the teeth,
Hmm.
and then out through the nose or through the tongue.
Hmm.
Shitkari and then out through the nose, but that's only for cooling somebody.
Right.
They're in a hot flash or heat exhaustion or pitta aggravated. And we're
So,
not going to do that
sauna
in
steam room,
push.
that's a great one. Yeah.
Which one?
In the sauna and the steam room, it's a great one to curl the tongue.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Nice.
even
Cool off.
that, even if it's a hot steam room, it still gets real hot when you when I breathe in.
Does.
Yeah.
It does.
So
So
and so what you're doing in the mudra that you showed is you're curling your ego finger and then coming over with the thumb, right? For the
just
people that
putting
are
it
listening.
just putting it right on that thumbnail. So we're taking the fire finger and we're the superior consciousness finger and we're taming down the ego. And
Okay.
it's just one more thing to bring into our control. I like to remind people we have five perception organs. Our
Hmm.
eyes. If I can visualize that candle right in front of my eyes, and still my eyes, even if I'm standing in the middle of people. What's the first thing we do when we get triggered? The eyes start moving around in a nervousness. The mouth starts moving.
Hmm.
Tongue starts moving. Like if you see somebody on crack,
Hmm.
eyeballs are moving all around, tongue's moving all around. So we still the tongue. We try to still the eyes. That's two organs. Hearing. We teach them how to hear inwardly rather than listening outwardly. Because when we get triggered, what do? We get hypervigilant. We're looking and hearing around us. Instead, we hear that ujjayi breathing.
Hmm.
We hear the inner voice rather than projecting our listening outwards. And then we bring the hands, which are the organ of touch and feeling. And then we engage the hands. So we engage the eyes, still the tongue, still the listening inward, listen to the breath inside, bring the fingers. Because what do we usually do when we're really nervous? Pill roll, we start picking and fiddling, going after our phone, doing stuff, and the hands get moving.
Hmm.
Now, if they're not at the grocery store, then go on an even deeper lockdown. Sit crisscross applesauce. Lock
Hmm.
up the legs, the feet, which is a karma organ. What do we do when we get scared or triggered? We start bustling around, or
Hmm.
sometimes we freeze up. So we use the feet. And then we start locking up the other karma organs. One is the tongue also. So the tongue's already locked. Then the other two karma organs, the genitals and the anus. So that's when we start doing like that mula bandha,
Hmm.
just pulling the energy inward,
Root lock.
root lock.
Hmm.
And so when we start using all these technologies, then we can take something that might have been an extreme trigger and we come back into self-control.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, this is all really powerful techniques that I think would really benefit a lot of people. And what about so we talked about the emotional regulation techniques, and then we talked about the Ayurvedic mental and spiritual regulation a little bit, right? Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
Hmm. In Ayurveda, that was one of the first places I was formally introduced to the chakras. So
Mm,
when I was learning under Dr. Jayagopal Parla, I remember he gave us these beautiful illustrations of all the chakras, like the traditional Indian ones, and like some of them had elephants inside of them, and some of them had goddesses inside of them, and dakinis in them, and letters, the alphabet, written on the petals. And we would learn how to engage our mind, rotate our consciousness into a chakra, and then visualize all these different elements. So in Ayurveda as well as yoga, we learn different types of ways to go into the chakras. This is also what Reiki works with,
hmm.
or what the base technology works with. So let's just take, for instance, our seven main chakras. First of all, what on earth is a chakra? For those of you who might be new to the word chakra, I remember, side story, the first time I heard the word chakra, I was working in the intensive care unit on a night shift. And this lady, she was like, "Oh, do you know about the chakras?" And I was like, "Is that some sort of new age crap? You know, chakra Khan. Don't tell me about these weird ass hippie chakras, right?"
Hmm.
Because I had no idea. I went through the medical system, didn't know what a chakra was, because I've dissected humans. I've never seen a chakra in there, right? So I thought it was new age gobbledygook. So anyways, I was studying yoga and Ayurveda, and we got the full technology taught to us. So when we look at a chakra, it's a wheel, a emotional, psychic, pranic processing center. So certain chakras hold on to and process certain types of emotions. So for instance, the lowest chakra, we'll just go with the root chakra. Its biggest shadow or blocking emotion is fear.
Hmm.
Then as you go up the chakras, they each have their own specific hiccup points.
Hmm.
Well, all right, so we have fear in the Muladhara chakra. Don't all of us have some degree of fear? Some of us have much more fear. Well, what happens when that happens? I mean, all right, so I have some fear. The chakra itself stops processing prana properly. And so the prana that's supposed to be flowing from, let's stay with the root chakra, the Muladhara, is no longer delivering the same quantity and or quality of prana, life force, to the governed body zones. So
Hmm.
the root chakra governs the body anatomically, the hips, the pelvis, the lower legs, the knees, the ankles, the feet, the bones, and the teeth. So somebody who is in chronic fear might see unnecessarily physiological problems in those related anatomical locations.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then we also see that each chakra has an emotional component. So let's just say we go up to the heart chakra, the Anahata chakra. If we receive grief or rejection, and we pull inward, we contract, that portion of our body. We might start seeing health-related problems in the chest, the heart, the thymus gland, the nerves down the arms and into the hands. So the chakra is not just like this, oh, it's just a subtle body gobbly-gop thing.
Hmm.
It governs the type and quality of prana in our body. But we also, in Ayurveda, depending on whether or not you got a, how do I say this politely? I want to say whitewash, but that's a rude term.
Brainwashed?
A lightweight Ayurvedic program, or
Okay.
let's say a deeper Ayurvedic program from a traditional Indian trained Vaidya.
Mm.
Then you learn emotional regulation and spiritual regulation in each of the chakras. So you learn, like, not only what the color of the chakra is, and who cares what color it is? Well,
Hmm.
it matters because every color has a different wavelength,
Hmm.
actual measurable wavelength.
Hmm.
And then you learn inside each chakra there are elements, earth element, water element, and on up to the space element, onto the conscious element. And so we learn like where do we hold certain elemental imbalances that lead to spiritual blockages, but also inside each chakra, we learn who are the governing gods and goddesses, and how can we create a yogic relationship with them.
Mm.
But then, now we're moving into the Hindu pantheon, into the Vedic pantheon, and people are like, oh, but wait a second, I'm Catholic.
Hmm.
So sometimes there's a stoppage there, and that's fine.
Hmm.
I've told a lot of clients who had chakra balances, do your rosary.
Hmm.
That'll work. That'll help.
Hmm.
But let's say, for instance, the root chakra. The root chakra is highly associated with Ganesha,
Hmm.
the elephant-headed son of Kundalini.
Right.
And so we talked about that a little bit in the last class, but each of the chakra centers have these spiritual ways of connecting in to purify them, to work with them, even down to the alphabet. Just
Hmm.
saying the alphabet because one letter is on each chakra petal.
Hmm.
So, spiritual regulation often comes through correcting the underlying spiritual imbalances that are detected inside the chakras.
Okay.
And maybe those just came from emotional imbalances.
Hmm.
And then that led to spiritual impediments. But
Hmm.
then we can go even further with Ayurveda and start learning like what are the bijas and the different seed sounds to open up each of the spiritual centers in the spiritual body along the chakras.
Hmm.
Um, Ayurveda also focuses in deeply on meditation practices, and mantra.
Hmm. Well,
There's quite
before
a
we
bit.
get into that, I had one thing I wanted to ask you and kind of add about the chakras, which was that each one is related to an endocrine gland,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
that's how I kind of bridged that anatomical understanding with the spiritual, and uh, it's like the endocrine gland has this torus of energy around it, and
Mhm.
that's the chakra system. And you know, in the most scientific way that I can think of explaining it, right? Like this,
Yeah.
like a torus is like a this shape that's formed like an apple, right?
Mhm.
Where the energy keeps moving in, and
Mhm.
that's why that core of the apple has a seed, and that's how it grows. But yeah, I think that's a piece that was powerful for me to connect with the endocrine system and the chakra system. And so yeah, that is there anything you'd like to add about that from like a nurse
Um,
practitioner
yeah.
perspective?
So each of the chakras also correlate with nervous plexuses. So these big nerve crisscrossings.
Hmm.
So we have, nerves, we have each of them represented and directly interlinked with an endocrine system. And when we understand all of those interconnectedness, then we can work out from the chakra and in from the chakra. And sometimes it is that spiritual imbalance that's causing the physical imbalance, or
Hmm.
the other way around, the physical imbalance causing the spiritual imbalance. But I love what my Ayurvedic teacher says. He says the chakras and the subtle body is more like a blueprint from the spirit body for the physical body, and that we can work on the physical body all we want. But if the blockage is coming through the spiritual channel, then we will never see a full healing.
Mm.
So, like for instance, when we have a client come into the Ayurvedic clinic and they have, let's say, extreme back pain,
Hmm.
one of the first things we do after we set up the back pain treatment is we start chanting of the patient, because we understand which mantras unlock certain spiritual blockages.
Mm. And which mantra is for the lower back?
Well, one of the greatest mantras that's for pain, disease, fear of disease, as well as fear of death. Because usually, if you have pain and a disease, you start thinking about dying. So
Hmm.
they all kind of go into one.
Right.
Is Mahamrittyunjaya Mantra. So we use the Mahamrittyunjaya Mantra when we do, let's say, back treatments, katibastis, neck treatments, for pain in the spine. And we also use that mantra when we're doing fire ceremonies for healing.
Hmm.
We also use that mantra at like birthdays,
Mm.
funerals, or death rites,
Hmm.
as well as house blessings. They say that when you do that mantra in the proper way, in the proper conditions, it replicates the Fibonacci sequence, which
Hmm.
brings a rebalancing. So the Mahamrityunjaya mantras. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivadanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyamamritat. And then we usually do it 108 times.
How do
And
you
it
spell that? I'm gonna write it down, and so people can also look it up.
Maha Mrityunjaya Mantra. Let me type it in here. Maha, M-A-H-A,
Uh-huh.
Mrit, M-R-T-Y, Mrityunjaya. So M-A-H-A,
Hmm.
Mrityunjay. And so Maha is great. Mrityu is death. And Jaya is victory. So it's victory over the aspects of death, disease, dying, and disorder.
Okay.
And one of the beautiful lines from it is that may the shining three-eyed one come and relieve me and pluck me like a ripe fruit from the vine.
Mm.
And I've seen tremendous healing happen with the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. Even patients who didn't know what the mantra was, we just say, we're going to do a healing mantra while we do your treatment. And you'll see tremendous energy shifts happen with them.
Wow.
Myself, I had a huge shift. For our final, we had to chant this mantra because we had to do it in clinic for treatments.
Hmm.
And I remember calling my teacher. I was like, I don't think I should do this mantra. I think it's contraindicated in my case. It really is making me feel wacky and like upset and crying and strange. And he said,
Hmm.
do it twice a day. I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh, twice a day.
Keep leaning into it.
Yeah, keep leaning into it.
I love
And
it.
it's just one of the most phenomenal mantras. It's one of the oldest Vedic mantras, too. It's found all the way back to the Rig Veda, which is one of
Mm,
the oldest written texts known to humanity.
beautiful. Beautiful. So I think we can um, kind of bridge into Reiki with, we were talking about a little bit about anxiety and how to help people move through those kind of things. With my Reiki initiation, my anxiety was 99% healed from that because I it was so empowering that I felt like no matter where I was in the world, no matter what I was doing, I could activate this universal energy that would flow through my hands or through my eyes or my feet that would help me regulate and relax and heal and I did some studies with it, right? Like I got like a little cut and I did Reiki on it and I took like photos of what how the healing was in 5 minutes and 10 minutes and a half hour. And it was one of those logical uh, conclusions, right? Of like my logical mind needed to see the physical cut healing so
Mhm.
that I could see the power of it. And then as I got to level two and level three with the master level, it just all these profound things were happening. Like we would bring in a photograph and somebody would say, okay, tune into this person. It would be like somebody's, brother or somebody's deceased aunt that they were close with, and just tune into it. And I tuned into this photo, and I remember seeing this image in my mind of this woman walking with a little daughter through Atlantic City on the boardwalk. And I brought it up to them thinking like, this is a strange thing I just saw. Does it mean anything to you? And she responded with, yes, that's actually where we used to go as a little girl. I used to go with my aunt there, and it was my favorite place to go with her because it was just so beautiful to be by the ocean. And I was like, wow, okay, so this stuff really does work. And it just opened up this whole new realm of possibility for me.
Yeah. Yeah, Reiki gets a mixed review. Some people are like, Reiki schmakey,
Right,
what's
right.
new age trash. And again, it's not new age. It
Mhm,
is the healing modality that's been done for thousands of years. Dr. Usui was a Christian seminary and first set out to answer the question in his s- religious studies class. So he was the professor, and his students were like, how did Jesus heal? He was like, hmm. And that was one of the things that prompted him to backtrack all of the different studies. And then we end up right back into yoga and tantra, back into the chakras, into
mhm,
the subtle body, into controlling the eyes, the ears, the tongue, the hand, the root lock, and all of those different elements. And then once we learn how to control all of that, and we learn to heal ourselves first. Even my Guru Ma, she says, take all of those healing technologies from yoga, Ayurveda, and Tantra, and then start building that energy in the Manipura chakra, in the center of the body. Build it, build it, build it, build it until you're overflowing to such a degree that just coming in contact with somebody could spontaneously heal them. And she
mhm.
says, you don't have to tell anybody who did it. You could be
Right,
completely anonymous about it. She says it's better that way, anyways.
right.
Um, but anyways, Reiki is a tremendous science. If you learn it from somebody who is not handing out Cracker Jack box degrees, of course, because there
Mhm,
are some out there who do not have a traditional or robust curriculum. But
mhm,
for those that learn like yourself, um, Level one is all about healing the physical body and also a lot about self-healing.
Hmm.
I always say a good physician first heals themselves. If they can't
Yeah.
heal themselves, then they need to look further. And that's why I went into Reiki. I had certain spiritual, emotional things that were happening in my phenomenon. I was like, isn't there some way to get rid of this?
Hmm.
And one of my friends said, go learn Reiki.
Hmm.
So when I first learned Reiki level one, usually the curriculum, you learn a lot about the subtle body, the chakras. Ideally, you learn how to meditate and direct the pranic universal energy. And you learn how it's not about you. It's not your ego. You're not the one saying like, ta-da, I'm directing energy all around. You're just being a conduit to, like we talked about the spiritual imbalances. You're just breaking open and allowing that universal energy to surround that person and to go to where it's of highest good.
Hmm.
And, in level two, we often see a much higher emotional and spiritual healing, getting rid of unnecessary karmic entanglements
Hmm.
and moving into creating your own physical, mental, spiritual body that is capable of harnessing, opening up, and directing that pranic energy to and through other people, places, circumstances, even people who aren't physically present. Like you said, you could do it through a photo. You could do Reiki with deceased people.
Hmm.
Um, I personally do a lot of work with the dead, but that just happens to be one of my things.
Hmm.
Um, with Reiki, you also learn what are your special skills. Some
Hmm.
people work with plants, some people work with animals.
Hmm.
Um, I had the privilege of being a volunteer at the hospital I worked at. I worked at the local St. Bernardine's Medical Center in San Bernardino for 30 years.
Wow.
And then my last 5 years or so, I got to work with the palliative care, hospice, oncology. And so they would call me and say, can you come do Reiki on this patient? They're in pain or they're dying. And at first I was like, oh gosh, here, let me take my medical hat off and put my Reiki hat on, how are they gonna feel about this? Like, do I look like that weird lady?
Uh-huh.
And no, the response was tremendous. The clients, the patients, the dying took on a deep spiritual healing. Just like if you're Catholic, you call the Catholic priest and they read you rites and they give you benedictions and blessings. Reiki sometimes is that benediction and blessing that's non-denominational
Hmm.
and that doesn't even have words to go along with it. You don't have to speak, you don't have to know, you don't have to teach, you just transmit.
Hmm.
And then the person that you're transmitting for, if let's just say their chakras are out of balance, creating physical imbalance, sometimes all they need is to be exposed to that higher energy current, and it allows everything to go back into balance.
Yeah.
It's like, I like to describe it as imagine your whole life you thought that you were a 20-watt bulb for a night light.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden you met somebody who is a 150-watt light bulb. You
Hmm.
can't unsee that
Right.
and you can't unexperience it. Once you've been exposed to that higher current of light, energy, Reiki, chi, prana, spiritual juice, whatever you want to call it,
Hmm.
juju, you can't undo it.
Yeah.
And some people, the doors are closed. That's
Hmm.
okay.
Hmm.
Maybe not in this lifetime.
Right.
Maybe out of the periphery of their eye they saw it.
Hmm.
They just weren't ready for it.
Right. Right.
Reiki is incredible. I came at it from a skeptic point of view. I was like, Reiki schmeiki. What's
Hmm.
your new age stuff?
Right.
And I had some of the most incredible personal healings, and I've been certifying people in Reiki for, I think, close to 15 years now. And I've witnessed in students, people who are being initiated, enormous, enormous shifts.
Oh yeah.
Things that they're not even aware of.
Hmm.
Like, just real quick, an example was I was seeing this gentleman, his wife sent him, he was having back pain because he had
Hmm.
cerebral palsy. And I said, okay, what's your intention for Reiki? And he said, my back, I want to work on my back. I said, okay, great. Because Reiki works on the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, the karmic, the multidimensional levels. And so we were doing the Reiki treatment. Do, 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 do. And every time I got to his head, I visualized him. Now, we all have different psychism skills. Some people see things, some people don't. It's not
Right.
always across the board with Reiki, but every time I got to his head, I saw him being whack, 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 hitting his head. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, well, how am I going to bring that up? And I was like, okay, ignore it for now. Keep doing the treatment. Went back to his back, came back to his head, same thing, whack, whack, whack. I was like, oh, I'm going to have to bring this up. This is very strong. So I finished up his treatment and I said, I don't know what it means, but every time I got to your head, this is what I saw. And he
Hmm.
said, oh, that's how my dad abused me when I was a little boy.
Oh wow.
And he said, but I'm already over that. I've emotionally healed. I forgave my father. I don't have any, emotional, psychic, physical problems with that anymore. I said, except for the fact that I can still see it
Hmm.
in your psychic body.
Right.
So, you just give them first the awareness that it still exists as something readable. And I gave them a real simple remedy, like, put a couple drops of essential oil on your ears each day and, just cover the ears and say a few ohms just to disrupt that energy.
Right.
And he had such a powerful shift after he
Wow.
just shed that little bit of psychic goo that
Hmm.
was still attached to him.
Yeah.
People in the outside world started responding to him differently because
Hmm.
aura shifted.
Yeah.
Imagine carrying that in your aura everywhere you go, and then you get rid of it from the aura. Everything can change dramatically.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Dr. Christie, it's been such an honor to have you on again today. I feel like that just flew by again. We covered so many amazing, amazing topics and gave people some phenomenal tools and ways to work through triggers and different mudras and mantras. And I'm so grateful for you. And you're welcome back on the podcast at any time. I'd love to do another episode maybe in 2026.
Yeah, the next season.
Yes, next season, season 3. So
Well, thank you
it's
so much for having me on. I really enjoy sharing.
you're so good at it. You're an amazing teacher, and I'm so grateful for you and for knowing you and really looking forward to the next time we get together. So until then, thank you, Dr. Christie. Sending you so many blessings and love.
Thank you. Sending blessings as well. Take care.
Take care.